Hello and welcome to Invested in Wellness. I'm Jessie, Sarafian. So today is an exciting show as it's part 3 of our Wealth and Wellness series. We're joined by special guest Michelle Munro. She's the Director of Tax and Retirement Research here at Fidelity. And today we're going to dive into the topic of achieving balance, the long-term view. So true success in both investing and wellness comes from balance, patience, and celebrating progress. So this session ties it all together, offering strategies to sustain growth and achieve lasting results. So Michelle, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here for part 3 of our series.
Great. So looking forward to our conversation. So for those of you who missed part 1 and part 2 of our Wealth and Wellness series, the replays are now available on fidelity.ca. So Michelle, it seems that every day the headlines in the news keep changing, and I know you travel quite a bit across the country speaking to clients, both advisors and investors. So what are you hearing from people right now?
Oh, Jessie, absolutely. It is hard keeping up with the headline news. Politics, market volatility, tariffs, the economy, interest rate changes. I think people feel overwhelmed with just the pace that there's so much going on, it feels like. But I feel really reassured that there's a common theme from what I hear about people and advisors who have who have those written financial plans. They've been working those plans, and they're so disciplined and focused on their long-term strategies. And overall, they just feel so much more positive, just reinforcing the importance of having a plan. So it's creating that plan, working that plan. Maybe we're going to have a few little tweaks, but they're tweaks. And it's overall staying focused on the plan to achieve long-term goals and feeling more positive because of it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, and really focusing on that vision board, right, at the end of the day.
Hmm.
So to recap part 1 and part 2, well, to recap part 2, for sure. We chatted about progress and consistency. So, Michelle, what were the key takeaways from part 2?
Yeah, so we've been building and growing on each of these series. In that part 2, it was really we emphasized that power of small, seemingly small, but consistent actions over a long period of time. So think about like working out. You want to build your strength. Well, you have a regular workout. You're doing it consistently. Same with financial. So it's small financial habits like automating, investing, say doing TFSA and RSP, compounding that over a long period of time. The key is really consistency, even when you may not see the immediate results.
Hmm. And going back to, compounding, we had a question come from a viewer last time that I wanted to address. So I'm a new investor starting my career, and there's so many different investment terms out there. Like you mentioned, RSP, TFSA. So which one do I use first, and where does one start?
Yeah, that we do use. I apologize, Jesse. I shouldn't have been throwing out jargon. Like in the industry, we have so much jargon. So this is a great question. I'm so glad we asked it. So we want to talk about some of the jargon I used. Registered Retirement Savings Plan, RRSP. Well, as the name suggests, it's for retirement. So we want to go back to, well, what is the individual's goals? Are they planning for that long-term retirement, what they're saving for? There's some tax advantages to using a RRSP. There's a deduction when one makes a contribution. The earnings and the growth inside that RRSP account grow on a tax deferred basis. And then when an individual makes a withdrawal, typically in retirement, that withdrawal is taxable, but it's taxed at that typically a lower tax rate than they were in those working years when they made that RSP contribution, when they got that tax deduction. So that's all to say that there's some tax advantages to using an RRSP. The TFSA, tax-free savings account, it's a little bit more flexible. It also it allows investments to grow tax-free. But when one makes a contribution to a TFSA, there's no tax deduction. So we use the term, it's used with after-tax money. Now, once those investments inside the TFSA account, they're made, the earnings and the growth are tax-free. Someone can make a withdrawal at any time for any purpose from their TFSA, and they can recontribute that in a later time. So there's more flexibility. Uh, Typically, a TFSA is used for shorter term goals, but it could also be used to complement an RRSP for retirement goals. Um, Both a RRSP or a TFSA can hold a plethora of investments, such as mutual funds, ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, stocks, bonds, and the list goes on and on. And again, so which one to start with? Well, it depends on what the goal is. Often with somebody who is a new investor, they're often younger, a lower earnings, like they don't have much employment earnings, so they might be better off with a TFSA because they're not concerned about getting that deduction that they would get with an RRSP. For either one, starting with small, consistent contributions is a great first step.
Great. So thank you so much for that information. So today we're chatting about achieving balance, the long-term view. So how important is balance and patience when it comes to our physical and financial goals?
I think balance is really everything. Like it's balance is so important in every aspect of life, including investing. When we're thinking about investing, well, there's typically three things we want to be thinking about. Well, what is that financial goal? Then what is the time horizon associated with that? Is it years away? Is it decades away? And what is the individual's risk tolerance? In general, we want to avoid putting all of our eggs in one basket. We want to have some diversification. And we really want to try to diversification. Why we want that is it's to help mitigate and manage risk. And it goes hand in hand with achieving steady growth. So if you compare that to wellness, well, we're finding a balance between nutrition, exercise, and rest. And those are all essential for long-term health. So bringing it back to like both these journeys, they require patience, discipline, consistency. But when you stay committed, the results are truly rewarding, whether it's fitness or in financial.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like you said, balance is so important. And once you've established that routine, then it becomes a lifestyle. There's no turning back. You're looking forward to a more fulfilling life and, and feeling good in all aspects, whether it's mental, physical, financial, emotional. You're tying it all together and it's your health, your wealth, your overall well-being, essentially, right? At the end of the day.
I really like how you said it's a lifestyle. It's just a choice of how you live your life. Like, you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth. You
Yeah.
get up, you exercise, you invest.
Absolutely. So, Michelle, what strategies can help people prioritize both fitness and financial security without feeling overwhelmed?
Well, our goal is for both is to have some sustainable success, right? So we're starting small. Stay focused on what works for you. What works for you may not be what works for me. So it's a very individualized approach, as well as what are your goals, both short-term and long-term goals. So let's talk fitness first. Well, you might block out time for workouts. And investing, well, we're going to set up regular investment schedule, a pay yourself a first approach. And then we're going to schedule some regular financial check-ins. How are we doing? Uh, Part of that is reviewing our budgets. Maybe there's things that we can decrease our expenses, increase our investing rate. And all these small changes can really have a big difference over a long period of time. Um, And I've sort of talked about here about all the things we can say yes to, things that we can do, but we also want to think on the flip side, what can we say no to, if you will? Things that just don't align with our long-term goals. So maybe we could say, like on a fitness side, saying no to that late night out that disrupts your sleep and really isn't that much fun. So you're up early. For me, I can get to that tennis game and really progress my fitness goals. On the financial side, maybe it's we're going to skip a big ticket purchase that really I don't need, and it's going to lose its appeal in a few weeks. So thinking about, well, what's really essential and what things can we say no to, as well as the things that we can say yes to.
Mhm. Yeah, I completely agree. You have to do what works for your schedule. Going back to those calendar blocks, I always, tell my students or even for myself, block, a few minutes throughout the day where I can focus on just deep breathing, detox, moving my body. And I completely agree with the importance of saying no to the things that will set
Yeah.
you back.
Those calendar reminders can be really important and impactful.
Yeah, definitely. So, Michelle, how can we develop financial habits that will serve us well over decades, like you mentioned, rather than just the next few months or years?
Right. And I think you said it a couple segments back there when we talked about making it a lifestyle. It's
Mhm.
those sustainable habits. When it comes to finances, are we automating that investing, reviewing that financial plan annually at a minimum, staying invested during those market ups and downs, volatility, which are really to be expected as part of the market. So it's also just like building strength at the gym. Uh, there's a lot of consistencies there. There's similarities. And building that portfolio, it really takes time, but the consistency really does pay off in the long run. There's a saying that says, well, time in the market pays off rather than trying to time the market. And I
Mm.
like that because it really talks about that consistency, starting early, smaller amounts, early investing, staying consistent over years really has the long-term benefits.
No, for sure. And speaking about time, so we had an audience question last time specifically about maternity leave. So I know 6 years ago when I went on maternity leave, a lot more expenses, definitely. Bringing on a new baby into the family, lots of new changes, life changes for sure. So, same question, how do I stay on track when starting a family and having this time off?
It is such an exciting time. And, you said 6 years ago, it's probably gone by so quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody goes through a bit of a coulda, woulda, shoulda, because you're going through this big, huge life event. And then what I'm asking is like, well, let's plan ahead financially in addition to that. You said like, well, your expenses go up because you're preparing for this new baby.
Mhm.
So let's review some of that day-to-day budgeting. So the expenses go up. Often what happens is taking maternity leave or parental leave and income declines. So know what government benefits are you entitled to, as well as employer benefits. Often employers will provide a top up. You really want to make sure you take advantage of everything that's available to you. Because I think every new family goes through this where the expenses go up and the income goes down. So they're inversely related. So before you go on leave as well, let's think about, well, is there an opportunity to potentially save up a little bit extra, have a little bit more of a cushion going into that maternity leave time off, topping up that emergency fund. Now, if your budget allows, and I know it's hard, but while somebody is off on parental leave, continuing contributing to their own RSP or TFSA for this period can really help maintain this momentum, consistent actions. We see that long-term benefit. When I was off, almost 20 years ago now, My employer had a matching RRSP program. So, in general, if I put in $100, my employer would put in a matching $100, which is a huge benefit. As well as, well, I'll also say at the time it was a financial stretch, but it was also a huge step to stay on track, prioritizing my long term financial health. So also think like, okay, well, you're going through this phase. It's also a temporary phase. So remember to prioritize both your financial needs and your own health needs as well.
Yes, absolutely. And tying it back to, starting a new family or, saving for that new house or new car, you want to enjoy life, So what is the best way to balance saving for the future while still enjoying life, having fun?
It is, Jesse, it really is a balance, right? Because we want to celebrate the journey of living your best life,
Mhm.
uh, and recognizing those significant achievements, having a child, things like that. But we also want to stay inspired for the long term. So it's about finding a personal balance, if you will. So we're allocating funds to long term goals like retirement, um, but also enjoying those experiences today. Maybe it's a family vacation. Maybe it's just a simply a nice dinner out with friends, whatever is important to you. We want to celebrate, enjoy life today, but it also, I think, motivates you to see the bigger picture as well because you want to enjoy these things years from now, decades from now. The biggest one is retirement. So how do we balance that? I think it's really comes down to automating so much of what you're doing, automated investing specifically. Set aside a little bit from every paycheck every month, so it's targeted towards that long-term goals, and enjoy your life today. So it's finding that personal balance that's right for you and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important to reward yourself. And like you said, celebrating those wins. And it can look different for everyone. It could be a yearly health and wellness retreat. That's something I would love to do.
Oh, yeah.
Or even simply getting a new book or a journal and, celebrating you. We all deserve it. I know my son's only 6 years old, but I love doing experiences with him. So I think rewarding yourself and rewarding your work and celebrating that is so important. So thinking about the long-term goals here, specifically retirement, how do we know if we have enough to retire? That was one of the questions we got as well.
That is a great question. And it's such a hard one to say, give like a hard, concrete answer. You have enough.
Mhm.
Um, Again, because it's a very unique journey. So some of the considerations you'll want to think about are, okay, well, what is your lifestyle? What is your retirement lifestyle? What is that going to look like? What are your spending habits? When do you actually retire? How long is your life expectancy? Meaning, how long is retirement going to last? Often, what happens is about the first 5 years of retirement, people spend more than they think that they will. Some of it is because, like, they're doing things, pursuing hobbies, travel. We do an annual retirement survey. Consistently, the number one thing people want to do in retirement is travel. Travel can mean so many different things. It could mean a more economical, say, road trip, Winnebago, across the country, or is it luxury 5-star uh, around the globe type
Mhm.
of travel? There's a huge difference in what that's going to cost. And this is sort of like the fun part. Like, what does retirement look like to you?
Mhm.
Create that vision. What do you want it to be? Do a vision board,
Mhm.
whatever that means for you. And it's individual. So but okay, so I've said all these things to be thinking about. Um, the question is, how do we know if we have enough to retire? Well, there's some ways we can sort of get our head around to how can we make sure that we're there. And there's some different ways that we look at it. Some say, well, we want to just start a savings rate, somewhere between 10 and 20% of your gross income from the day you start working.
Mm.
Okay. Sometimes that will be hard, especially for people who've just started working. They might have student debt. Maybe they're trying to um, get established in a high cost place of living. So that can be, it can be definitely hard to do. But sometimes these things are aspirational, just to get the conversation going. So other ways we might look at it is we want to get an income replacement rate. So we look at our earnings during our working years, so pre-retirement, how much did we spend? Well, in our post-retirement, we want to have somewhere between 40 to 80% of that pre-retirement income. All right. So, and that also goes back to, well, am I going to be closer to the 40% or the 80%? Well, it goes back to those lifestyle choices that I want to have during my retirement, as well as just I'll touch upon this quickly. Uh, we call this the retirement paycheck. So during my working years, I get a Fidelity paycheck. It looks pretty much the same every paycheck. Well, in retirement, there's all these different sources. Some of the common ones are Canada Pension Plan, Old Age Security. Some people might have an employer pension plan, your own savings. So you'd have to think about, well, where are all these different sources of retirement income with the goal of replacing somewhere between 40 and 80% of my pre-retirement income, my working income. Another way to look at it is looking at a sustainable or safe withdrawal rate. What that is a sustainable withdrawal rate is the estimated percentage of savings that you can withdraw each year from that retirement nest egg for the entirety of your retirement without running out of money.
Mm.
Again, different studies have been done somewhere between 4.5, some even go up to 5%. Um, and we talked about this earlier, the first 5 years, people often spend more than they do in sort of the middle retirement years. So thinking about, well, retirement spending isn't linear. And this is where, well, we'll get into this in a bit, but where an advisor can really help you stay on track, not to withdraw too much too early in one's career, in one's retirement. Okay, there's another way we could look at this as well. So there's lots of different ways. This is actually my favorite one. It's just the savings milestones. And again, I want to say that these can be somewhat aspirational, but saying, what have I saved or invested for my retirement? Well, by age 30, let's make it a goal to have 1 times annual gross earnings, and then sort of build upon that to the time of retirement. Standard retirement age is about 65, looking to have 10 to 12 times gross earnings at retirement. Again, I want to stress that these are very general guidelines to really help people kind of wrap their head around, like, how much will they really need to have in retirement? And this is where I want to bring the role of that financial advisor and financial coach, because it's instructional, and as well as it's the emotional aspect of staying on track through life's ups and downs, where a financial advisor can really help you create a plan that's unique to your individual needs to ensure that those retirement savings can last throughout your retirement, last a lifetime.
Great information. Wow, that was so informative,
There's
Michelle.
a lot in there, Jessie, and it's really, I'm going to stress it one more time. It's really to get that conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely. So tying it all together and looking back, at part one, two, and three of our Wealth and Wellness series, what is like the one main key takeaway that our viewers can leave with?
One key takeaway, I think it goes together. It's
Maybe I'll give you two
financial
or three.
health or physical health. It's small, seemingly small, consistent actions over a long period of time really sets you up for success. And no matter where you are in the journey, just start, right? You just get started. Stay disciplined, and as well as celebrate your success along the way, as we should.
Thank you. That I couldn't agree more, and I hope our viewers, gain some tips for them to propel forward in their future and their future goals for sure. So thank you so much, Michelle, for taking part in this three-part series with me.
It was great to be here. Thanks for having me, Jessie.
Great. So we are next week, we're back on the mat and we're going to focus on the lower body. So we'll see you next time. Take care.